The Set Attribute Gap tool allows the user to define a consistent gap between attributes on a symbol file. It can also allow the user to set a gap between an attribute and the geometry that it should be connected to. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. I'm going to hit the Set Attribute Gap icon in the menu bar. And here's a menu that pops up. First thing that you'll want to choose is between the X direction or the Y direction. We'll go ahead and pick Y because we're going to start with working on these right here. Next, we want to select a gap distance. Now we can insert a gap distance manually, and typically this is something around 0.05, somewhere in that neighborhood. Or what we could do is we could choose the half attribute text height. And what this does is this takes the attribute that is selected first, finds the height of that text, and then cuts it in half and uses that as the gap distance. And finally, we want to select a mode for how we're going to be picking. Continuous pick allows the user to pick one attribute and then another, and then another, and another, and another, and so on and so forth until all the attributes have been selected. Choosing multiple attributes at once will move a whole group. For example, it might move this whole group up to a gap with rating 2 here. But it's not going to create the correct gapping between all of the ones that are selected. And then one pair at a time just allows you to do 2 attributes at a time, or a geometric location and an attribute. We'll start with continuous pick. So we've got Y direction, 0.05, and continuous pick. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to start from this tag 2 attribute. So if I click that, now the command line is directing me to select the second attribute, the one to check or adjust. So I'm going to go ahead and pick loc. And you saw that it moved the loc attribute. Well, now I can pick installation, and that moves the installation attribute relative to the loc attribute. And I can keep going all the way up the list. And then I'll hit enter to get out of the command. Let's go back to that again. And this time we're going to do multiple attributes at once. I want to set my reference attribute as description 1. Okay, then I'm going to start my selection of the other attributes with tag 2. And now it's asking me to select objects. Now in this case, I need to select tag 2 again, as well as any other attributes that I want to move. So I've selected those, and I hit enter, and you see that all those have moved to the appropriate location. Let's do X direction now, and we'll do one pair at a time, and we'll move Termo 2 0.05 from this circle right here. So hit OK. And the command line is asking me to either select an attribute or a reference point. So if I want to do a reference point, I can either select that R or type R and hit enter. And I'm going to select this leftmost reference point on that circle. And now I just pick the attribute. And you see that it moved it, and it brought me back into the menu. So if I do this again, type R one more time. Perfect. So let's go ahead and finish off our entire attribute list. So I need to select the Y direction again, and I'm going to do continuous pick, and then hit OK. And I'll start with description 1 and move that one and that one. And notice how they move relative to each other. I don't need to pick the previous attribute again. I just keep picking. the one that I want to move. And even when they overlap a little bit, they come out looking great. This tool is great for making sure that your symbols look really nice and clean and professional, because great symbols are a key to having great looking drawings.